Right, so we're diving into some pretty wild stuff today.
Yeah.
Bitcoin, Michael Saylor, and whispers of a Trump comeback in 2025,
Wow.
all connected. Somehow we've got this text note that hints at some seriously inside knowledge about government Bitcoin reserves.
Mm.
And then we've got these 2 video clips from some pretty big names in the Bitcoin world,
Okay.
all captured at a recent event that Saylor himself hosted.
Interesting. So what's the mission for our deep dive today? What are we hoping to uncover?
I think the big question is, are we looking at some kind of seismic shift
Yeah.
in the way governments are approaching Bitcoin?
Yeah. I mean, you've got tech, finance, and politics all swirling around this idea of Bitcoin disrupting the global landscape.
Exactly. So let's start with Michael Saylor and his, almost unshakable belief in Bitcoin, right?
Right.
The sources we're looking at, they describe him as exuberantly confident at a party he threw recently.
Okay.
Now, this is interesting because MicroStrategy's stock, it hasn't exactly been, killing it.
Yeah.
But Saylor just keeps buying Bitcoin.
It seems like he's all in on this Bitcoin gambit, as some people are calling it.
The Bitcoin gambit.
Yeah, basically betting big on Bitcoin's future value,
Yeah.
even if it means some short-term pain for MicroStrategy in the stock market.
Right, right. And it shows you just how deeply he believes that Bitcoin is the future of finance.
Absolutely, a true believer.
But here's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
So the text note we have, it mentions something called a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Oh, what?
Yeah, like an SBR.
SBR.
And it suggests that Saylor might be more than just a casual observer.
Really?
Yeah. And then it brings up Dennis Porter.
Okay, yeah, I know Porter. He's a big Bitcoin advocate, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
He's been working really hard to get governments to adopt Bitcoin.
Especially as part of their financial reserves.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, to be fair, there's nothing concrete linking Saylor to an official government role.
Right.
But the idea that he might be advising policymakers behind the scenes.
I mean, it's definitely intriguing.
Right. And when you consider all the work Porter's doing to push for these government-held Bitcoin reserves.
Yeah, this whole SBR idea, it starts to feel a lot more plausible.
It's not just some tinfoil hat conspiracy theory anymore.
Right.
What if something's already happening and we're just seeing the first little hints of it?
Okay, so how did these video clips fit in? You mentioned 2 clips from Saylor's party.
Oh yeah, those are gold.
Okay.
So this party was called the 100K party. It was in Miami.
The 100K party.
Yeah. And the first clip shows this Bitcoin influencer talking to Dennis Porter.
Okay.
And Porter just casually drops this bombshell that multiple states are actually thinking about legislation for strategic Bitcoin reserves.
Whoa, hold on. Multiple states.
Yeah.
This isn't just some random speculation. This is
Right.
Dennis Porter we're talking about. He's deeply connected to these discussions.
Exactly.
If multiple states are actually considering this, it means governments are starting to view Bitcoin as a strategic asset.
Yeah, like a real game changer. And get this, it's not just happening at the state level.
Really?
Porter goes on to talk about how he's crafting a model executive order
An executive order.
for a potential Trump administration
Whoa.
to sign in 2025.
For Trump to sign.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this order would basically involve converting seized Bitcoin into this strategic reserve.
Okay, so think about what that would mean.
Yeah.
If the U.S. government not only recognized Bitcoin, but actively started accumulating it,
As a reserve asset.
yeah, it could legitimize Bitcoin globally.
Totally.
Like a domino effect, other countries might follow suit.
My mind is blown just thinking about it.
It's a huge possibility.
Yeah. But hasn't Trump been pretty quiet about Bitcoin lately?
He has. Yeah, he's expressed some skepticism in the past.
Right.
But things change, the political landscape, the
Yeah.
financial landscape.
Yeah.
Who knows how a second Trump administration might view Bitcoin.
Right. Maybe they'd see it as a way to challenge the current financial system.
Yeah, or assert American dominance in this new digital world.
I mean, imagine the headlines.
U.S. becomes world's largest Bitcoin holder.
The impact on the price would be insane.
Absolutely.
But Porter goes even further.
He does.
Yeah. He suggests that the U.S. government could start accepting Bitcoin as loan repayment.
Interesting.
So they could steadily increase their holdings without actually making direct purchases.
That's smart.
Right, because that could be politically sensitive.
Yeah.
But this way they could just kind of quietly build up their Bitcoin treasury.
It's a subtle but potentially really effective strategy.
Yeah, and it would send a huge signal about how the government views Bitcoin.
Almost like an official endorsement.
Right. It's like we're on the cusp of a whole new era, and this strategic Bitcoin reserve could be what pushes us over the edge.
It's a fascinating possibility.
But let's not forget there are potential downsides, too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Some people might say it gives the government too much control over the Bitcoin market,
Right.
or that it exposes taxpayer money to too much volatility.
Yeah, those are valid concerns.
There are a lot of moving pieces here.
Definitely.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely.
Speaking of interesting, let's move on to that second video clip from Saylor's party.
Okay.
Okay. So this one features another Bitcoin influencer interviewing Benjamin Cohen.
Benjamin Cohen, the Bitcoin analyst.
Yeah. You know him?
Yeah, I've seen his work. He's pretty sharp.
Yeah. So he makes this really interesting observation.
What's that?
He says that social media isn't buzzing about Bitcoin the way it was during previous bull runs.
That's interesting.
Right. Like it's not as hyped up.
Yeah.
And Cohen thinks that might actually be a good thing.
Really?
Yeah, he thinks it means that the current price rally is being driven by fundamentals,
Oh.
not just speculation.
So it could be a sign that Bitcoin is maturing as an asset.
Exactly. Like it's not just a speculative bubble.
That's a very different perspective than we usually hear.
Right. It's refreshing.
Yeah.
So does this mean we're not in a bubble?
Well, certainly a perspective worth considering.
So there's still room for growth?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay.
And this ties into something that Cohen and the influencer go on to discuss.
Okay.
Valuing portfolios in sats.
Sats.
Yeah, Satoshi's the smallest unit of Bitcoin.
Oh, right.
It reflects a more long-term mindset, like focusing on accumulating Bitcoin slowly over time
Okay.
instead of trying to time the market for quick profits.
Yeah, I get it. It's about the long game.
Exactly. Shifting your perspective from short-term price swings to Bitcoin's long-term potential.
Right, because it's a scarce digital asset.
Precisely.
Right.
And this leads to a discussion about Bitcoin dominance.
Okay.
The ratio of Bitcoin's market cap to the total crypto market cap.
Yeah.
And when Bitcoin dominance is rising, it often means that investors are moving towards Bitcoin as a safe haven asset.
So if Bitcoin is king, what does that mean for all the other cryptocurrencies?
That's a big question that a lot of investors are grappling with right now.
Right. Are altcoins doomed if Bitcoin keeps going up?
Well, that's what we need to explore further.
Okay, so we've got Saylor's Bitcoin gambit, whispers of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, the potential impact on the dollar, and now this whole concept of Bitcoin dominance.
It's a lot to take in.
It is, and it's all happening so fast.
But it's incredibly exciting.
It is. It's like we're watching history unfold in real time.
Absolutely, and we're just getting started. Yeah, it really highlights how quickly this space is changing. I mean, just a few years ago, a strategic Bitcoin reserve backed by the U.S. government would have sounded crazy.
Right. Now it's like everyone's talking about it.
It's wild, and this whole idea of valuing portfolios in sats, that really got me thinking.
Yeah, me too. It's like a whole new way of looking at things.
Instead of obsessing over the price every minute,
Right.
you're just stacking sats slowly and steadily.
Playing the long game.
Exactly, and it aligns perfectly with Bitcoin's core principles.
Scarcity decentralization.
Exactly. It's about recognizing the true value proposition of Bitcoin.
Here, speaking of the bigger picture, we can't ignore the potential impact of all this on the global financial system.
Oh, yeah, that's the big question, isn't it?
What happens if the U.S. actually does establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve? What does that mean for the dollar?
Right. What does it mean for global trade?
It's huge. I mean, some people think it could actually strengthen the dollar in the long run.
Yeah, because it would be backed by a scarce decentralized asset.
Exactly. But then others worry it could destabilize the whole system.
Yeah, lead to all sorts of unintended consequences.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
It is. It's like this one decision could trigger a chain reaction across the entire global economy.
And it all comes back to this idea of Bitcoin as a strategic asset.
Right, a way for nations to navigate this new digital world.
And we're not just talking about the U.S. I mean, look at El Salvador. They've already adopted Bitcoin as legal tender.
Right, and now you've got states in the U.S. exploring the idea of Bitcoin reserves.
It's like everyone's waking up to the possibilities.
Governments are starting to realize they can't ignore Bitcoin anymore.
It's like a race is on to see who can harness its power first.
And the U.S., with its history of financial innovation,
Yeah.
they're definitely starting to pay attention.
Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay.
We've talked about the potential of Bitcoin, the possibility of a strategic Bitcoin reserve.
Right.
But there's another big piece of the puzzle we need to consider.
What's that?
Regulation.
Ah, yes, regulation. That's a whole other can of worms.
I know as Bitcoin becomes more mainstream, the debate over how to regulate it is only going to intensify.
Yeah, you've got some people who believe Bitcoin should remain largely unregulated.
Right, because that's part of its appeal.
Exactly. It's decentralized by nature. It shouldn't be controlled by governments.
But then you've got others who say that some level of regulation is necessary to protect consumers.
Right, and to prevent illicit activities.
And then there's the question of how do you even regulate something like Bitcoin?
It's global. It's
Yeah.
decentralized. It's unlike anything we've ever seen before.
It's a tough one, for sure.
Definitely adds another layer of complexity to this whole discussion.
Yeah. But, thinking back to those video clips from Saylor's party,
Yeah,
I was struck by the optimism in the room.
the excitement.
Yeah, those Bitcoin influencers, they really believe that we're on the verge of something huge.
Oh, yeah. There's a definite sense of momentum building.
Like a tipping point.
Exactly. And events like Saylor's 100K party, they're bringing together all the key players.
It's like the network effect is growing stronger every day.
Absolutely. It's an exciting time to be involved in this space.
It's funny, we're talking about a digital currency,
Yeah.
but this whole Bitcoin phenomenon, it feels very human.
It does, doesn't it?
It's about people, their beliefs, their hopes, their fears.
It's about challenging the status quo, rethinking the way we view money and value,
It's about empowering individuals.
disrupting centralized systems,
And it's about community
a global community of people who believe in the power of this technology.
to change the world.
Exactly. And I think it's important to keep that human element in mind. Bitcoin is a tool, but it's the people who will determine its ultimate impact.
So where do we go from here?
Well, we've talked about Bitcoin's potential, the possibility of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, the challenges of regulation, the human element driving this movement.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It is, but I think the key takeaway is that we're still early in this journey.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is constantly evolving.
And its impact is only beginning to unfold.
So how do we make sense of it all?
Right. How do we separate the hype from the reality?
That's where critical thinking comes in.
Yeah.
You have to be discerning, question assumptions, seek out diverse perspectives, do your own research.
Don't just blindly believe everything you hear.
Exactly, especially in a space as dynamic and volatile as Bitcoin.
Be curious. Be skeptical. Be open to learning.
Those are the keys to navigating this exciting and sometimes bewildering world.
All right, so we've laid the groundwork, explored the big ideas, and emphasized the importance of critical thinking.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to examine.
Okay.
Bitcoin dominance.
So Bitcoin dominance, why is it such a big deal?
Well, it basically tells us how healthy and mature the crypto market is.
Okay.
So Bitcoin dominance refers to the percentage of the total crypto market cap that is held by Bitcoin.
Okay, so if Bitcoin dominance is high,
Right.
it means investors are really into Bitcoin.
Exactly. They see it as a safe haven asset, especially when the market is uncertain or volatile.
So when things get shaky, people flock to Bitcoin.
Precisely. It's a flight to quality, classic risk-off behavior.
And historically, when Bitcoin dominance is high.
That's usually when you see bear markets or periods of consolidation.
Okay, so it's like everyone's just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, they park their funds in Bitcoin, the most established and reliable asset.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
But what does that mean for all the altcoins out there?
That's a good question, and it can be a bit tricky for altcoins when Bitcoin dominance is rising.
Right, because investors are more focused on Bitcoin.
Exactly. They might not be as interested in riskier, more speculative altcoin projects.
So does that mean altcoins are doomed if Bitcoin keeps going up?
Not necessarily. I mean, there have been times when Bitcoin dominance has declined,
Okay.
and altcoins have done really well.
So it goes back and forth.
Yeah, you could say it's a bit of a cycle.
So Bitcoin goes up, then altcoins take a hit.
And then you see a surge of innovation in the altcoin space.
Yeah, they start to rally.
Exactly. The relationship between Bitcoin dominance and altcoin performance is always changing.
It's like a dance.
You could say that, but understanding these dynamics can help investors make smarter decisions.
So right now, Bitcoin dominance is increasing.
Yeah, that's right.
Does that mean we should just ignore altcoins completely?
I wouldn't go that far. There are always opportunities in the market.
Okay.
But it does mean that investors need to be more selective.
Focus on projects with strong fundamentals.
Exactly. Look for real-world utility and a solid team behind the project.
So it's not about picking sides. It's about being strategic.
Exactly. You have to understand the market dynamics and make informed decisions.
Well, you've definitely given me a lot to think about today.
It's been a great discussion.
From Michael Saylor's Bitcoin gamble to whispers of a strategic Bitcoin reserve, the potential impact on the dollar, the dynamics of Bitcoin dominance.
We've covered a lot of ground,
It's incredible to think about how all these pieces fit together.
and we're just scratching the surface.
I know there's so much more to explore in the world of Bitcoin.
It's a rapidly evolving space.
It's exciting and a little overwhelming all in the same time.
I know what you mean. It's what makes it so fascinating.
So as we wrap up, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is the future of Bitcoin and its impact on the world is really up to us.
That's a powerful thought.
It's up to individuals, communities, and governments to decide how they want to engage with this technology.
So it's not just about watching from the sidelines.
No, it's about being an active participant in this unfolding story.
Stay curious, stay informed, stay engaged.
The Bitcoin revolution is just getting started.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.